So, in typical Bethesda fashion with Starfield, there is a pretty in-depth character customization tool, and with that comes 21 backgrounds for you to choose from the outset. And once you've selected your background and any traits that go with them, these cannot then be changed once you get stuck into the game, even with New Game Plus, so it's incredibly important that you select the right background for your desired playstyle. And in this video, I'm going to select which ones are best for the way you're going to be playing the game, so let's go ahead and get stuck in. So each of the 21 backgrounds are going to give you 3 starting skills to go with them, and from what we've seen so far, you cannot do things you're not trained in, so this may include things like flying around with a jetpack or flying particularly large spacecraft. Of course, you can pick up new skills as you progress through the game, so the background and traits choices don't permanently hold you back, but it will directly affect what you can and can't do early on in the game. A lot of backgrounds will also provide some extra dialogue options depending on what situation you're currently in. For example, if you choose the bouncer background, you're going to get some choices around security issues, and if you're a chef, you're going to get some more food related dialogue options. And so far from what I've seen, these background specific choices aren't massively in depth and they don't have complete game changing consequences. At least that we know of so far, but it was worth keeping this in mind. And as well as backgrounds, you do get to choose from some traits to go with them. There are 17 different traits you can choose from, and each one has some positive and negative effects on the game. You can actually bypass them if you want to, I'm not sure why you would, but hey, they're also slightly less important than choosing a background, but some traits work really well with certain backgrounds and playstyles, so let's get stuck in. So let's start off with those of you who aren't as overly keen on running and gunning your way through Starfield, and instead you'd prefer to talk your way out of problems. There is one background here which will stand out amongst others, and that is Diplomat. The Diplomat is going to give you a boost to your persuasion skills, meaning you're far more likely to succeed during speech challenges. But not only that, you're going to be getting a bunch of discounts when trading with merchants, and just as importantly, you'll be able to sell resources for more as well. And finally, the Diplomat will give you a wellness boost which increases your health even beyond that of a bounty hunter, which doesn't really make too much sense, but anyway, we move. There is a second background which you could benefit from if you're going to be doing a lot more talking than running and gunning, and that is the Industrialist. It's not well suited for combat, but it will give you a persuasion skill like the Diplomat to talk your way out of bother, but it will also give you a security skill which means you can hack advanced locking, making the lockpicking minigame in Starfield a breeze. Well, maybe. And the final Industrialist skill is research methods, so you're going to need fewer resources when crafting new items, which can definitely be a massive help throughout your entire Starfield journey. So, the short of it is, if you want to spend less time shooting your way through the game and more time talking, choose either a Diplomat or the Industrialist background. So, being a Diplomat and talking your way through Starfield is probably not too much of a surprise that the Extrovert trait is a good one to pair with here, as it means you're a people person. Exerting yourself uses less oxygen when you're travelling with a companion, and as for the other traits, I'll leave these ones up to you in case you want to choose a specific faction based on that, or treat yourself to a dream home. Though you will have to pay a mortgage for it. And let's make a beeline for those of you who just absolutely love to craft stuff. The background for you is probably going to be the Professor. It's not good at all for combat, more on combat in a minute by the way, but if you want to science the shit out of Starfield, the Professor backgrounds will give you a head start in the grav drive technology for your ship with the astrodynamics skill. Its second skill is geology, meaning you're going to be gathering less common resources from surface objects, but not only that, you'll get more out of them as well. And finally, you'll also be getting the research method skill, which as I mentioned a few seconds ago, means you're going to need fewer resources when crafting new items, which can definitely be a massive help throughout your entire Starfield journey, especially as a crafter. So another good background for you crafters out there is probably the Pilgrim, as it's going to give you extra resources when looting containers from its first skill, which is scavenging. It also has a very useful other skill for finding items and resources with its surveying skill, which is going to give you a zoom for your hand scanner. And the third and final skill is gastronomy, meaning you can research and craft specialty food and drinks, which is very useful when you're given it from the get-go. So, if you're a crafter, 2 of the best background options for you are probably a Professor or a Pilgrim, but I am going to give you a third special mention to the Chef background here as well. It also includes the gastronomy and the scavenging skills, and those are complemented by the dueling skill, which means you're going to deal more melee damage and take less damage when wielding a melee weapon. So if you want that as well, probably go for Chef. So moving on to players who like to use a bit more stealth and melee enemies quite a bit, like myself sometimes. There is a background here which is going to help you out more than others, and that is Ronin. The 3 starting skills that come with Ronin are dueling, which means you deal more melee damage and take less damage while wielding a melee weapon. Perfect for sneaking up on enemies and stabbing them in the back, really, isn't it? And the next skill you get with Ronin is Stealth, which does exactly what it says on the tin. It gives you a stealth meter and makes you harder to detect while sneaking around. And the final skill it's going to give you is Scavenging, which means you'll find extra resources when looting containers. To be honest, I think that skill's good to have for any of the other backgrounds. The stealth in Starfield isn't as good as some other games from what I've heard, but if you prefer to be as sneaky as possible, Ronin should be your background of choice. And one good trait to use along with Ronin would probably be Introvert, and let me tell you why. When you're trying to be stealthy, you probably don't want companions coming along on missions as they could quite easily ruin your stealthy approach to it. And on top of that, the introvert trait will mean you consume less oxygen when you don't have any companions following you around. So, perfect for stealth, right? Of course, this means you can't also pair this with extrovert as well because they're the opposites of one another. And for the other trait or traits, I'd suggest leaving it down to you. Perhaps you want to join a specific faction, it really is your choice, but introvert should definitely be paired if you want to be stealthy. Right, we've seen a lot about starships in Starfield, ranging from customization to dogfights in space, but which is the best background to choose if you want to be the best pilot around? Well, that would probably be the bounty hunter, and that is because the first skill you get is called piloting, of course, which means you can use a ship thrusters and better ships. You're also going to get a skill called targeting systems control, which means you can target specific components of an enemy ship to take them offline, and then perhaps even board them. It is slightly annoying you can't do this from the start regardless of what background you have apart from bounty hunter, but we move, and the final skill is boost pack training, which means you can use these from the get-go as well. So if you plan on spending a lot of time in Starfield flying around, shooting other people, I'd probably select bounty hunter as your background. Spaced could be a good trait for you to use as a bounty hunter because it means your health and oxygen are increased whilst you're in space. And most bounties in Starfield are done in space, so it's going to give you that edge. And secondly, as you're a big fan of piloting a great ship with a great crew, the Taskmaster trait is good for Bounty Hunter as well. It means your crew will automatically repair the ship's systems that they're trained in when they drop below 50%. However, the flip side is it is going to cost you more to hire crew members in the first place, so make sure you take that into account before selecting it. Right, on to those of you who enjoy a good shoot-up, and of course Starfield has plenty to offer in terms of gameplay for this. There are a few backgrounds that can be useful for players who enjoy a good old-fashioned firefight, but there are two that stick out amongst the others, and the first one is Combat Medic. And first up, two of its skills immediately give you a better chance of survival in intense combat situations, with the Medicine and the Wellness skills. The Medicine skill means med packs, trauma packs and emergency kits will heal you more and faster, whereas a wellness skill is going to give you an increase to your maximum health from the outset. And completing the combat medic skills is a pistol certification skill, which means you're going to be dealing more damage with pistols, obviously. All in all, it's a very, very good combat background, maybe even the best, but it doesn't quite take your fancy, then why not go for the soldier background instead? They don't come with the health benefits of a combat medic, but what you will get is a fitness skill, meaning you run out of oxygen less quickly, which can be incredibly important in a variety of situations. You'll also get the boost pack training skill like a bounty hunter, and the icing on the cake, well, you're going to get ballistic skill, meaning any ballistic weapons are going to deal more damage. So if you fancy your combat skills without any health boosts, go for a soldier, but if you think you may need some health perks along the way, go with the combat medic background instead. And so, on to traits for combat. Wanted could be a good shout here because it means you'll deal extra damage when your health is low. And as you're going to be involved in a lot of firefights, this could be incredibly useful, though don't forget, there will be times when armed mercenaries are sometimes going to appear out of nowhere and try to kill you. So there is that. I'd probably also pair this with extrovert as well because it means when you're fighting with companions, you're going to be using less oxygen when performing actions such as sprinting. And as for the third, well, I'll leave that one down to you, whether or not you want to select a religion-based or a faction-based trait. Now, there are of course a few other backgrounds and traits that I haven't mentioned specifically in this video, which can be, to a certain degree at least, useful for any of the different playstyles I've gone over. So if your playstyle was covered but you're not overly keen on the specific backgrounds and traits I recommended, by all means leave a comment in the comments section below with which one you went with in the end. I'd love to see what you did. But overall, it's not totally game-changing which background and traits you decide to choose from, and some are better than others depending on your playstyle, especially earlier on in the game, and I've gone over those in this video, but the reality is, If you want to, of course, you can always change your character's focus and abilities as you progress throughout the game to become much more of an all-rounder as you get towards those higher levels. And there you have it, folks. Those are probably the best backgrounds you should be using depending on your different playstyles and the best traits to go with them. I hope you found this video useful, and if you did, it would be totally awesome if you could support my channel by hitting those like and subscribe buttons. And as always, thank you for watching this video, and I'll catch you in the next one.